Tonight on the Goblin's Corner.
Mastery of the mundane.
That's how we roll. 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 That's how we roll.
Welcome to the Goblin's Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
We're discussing Mastery of the Mundane.
Mastery of the mundane. And you're asking yourself, what exactly is Mastery of the Mundane? We're going to show you tonight all of the wonderful things that exist in TTRPGs, particularly the Player's Handbook for D&D 5e.
Sure.
We're just going to go through them and show you all kinds of interesting ways to use these objects that you didn't think before.
And though we're using items out of the DMG, it's really going to be applicable for basically every game.
Yes, because you got to learn how to use objects in a creative way.
Yeah. Well, that and acid exists in the real world, right? Like, alchemist fire is basically just naphtha. Like, there's plenty of ways to make all of these things applicable to both modern times and sci-fi times.
100%. So we'll give you a couple of examples of that. We'll get more into that. But before we get to that,
We have a question of the week.
yes, can I say that one more time?
I don't know.
That.
Okay.
All right. Matt, what is that you're giving to me? What question of the week do we have?
You are allowed 5 objects from your house
Mm-hmm.
to go through the portal to the magic world with you. What are you taking?
That highly depends on what magic portal I'm going to.
Nope, it's just a big glowing,
Just a big glowing
we're going to say green and purple portal.
green and purple. Okay,
Sure.
cool. So I'm going to the Forgotten Realms. Wonderful.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't care.
That's your determination you're
if
making?
it's a fantasy world and it's a magic portal, then I will be a wizard.
Okay.
This is how it works. And so my decisions are based on the fact that I am going to be a wizard when I
Okay.
get through that magic portal, by hook or by crook,
Sure.
crawling over dead bodies if I have to, with a mallet in one hand and riding a slot in the other. I will be a wizard.
Okay.
So, that being said, I would say my first object would be a life straw,
Sure.
because I have one and gotta drink water, man.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of stuff's in there.
Sure.
It's going to take a long time to get used to the water. So,
Yeah, don't want to catch that garnaciphomidia of the mouth.
yeah, you really don't. Magic world could be anything. Could be some kind of magical disease. I don't want, mummy stomach rot.
Yeah.
The second thing I would have would be some sort of tool. Now, I would assume I could create or get some sort of tool at some point in that magic world, but I'm going to say a demolition bar.
Okay.
And so that's the kind that has the hammer on one side, the little prying thing on the other that you could insert into somebody's skull, and a crowbar at the bottom.
Sure.
Very useful.
Yeah.
I've got one
Yeah.
literally
I've seen it.
within reaching distance of me because I just bought it. Because I'm redoing my house. So that would be the second thing. Third thing I would say would be a Kindle full of books, particularly books on engineering
Mm-hmm.
and chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe life sciences as well. Because I'm going to be creating Fabricate.
Sure.
I'm going to be wall of stoning stuff to build my fortified wizard castle.
Sure.
And I might need to heal somebody or myself.
Yeah.
Might go the cleric route. Who knows? I could be a paladin and drown. All of this could be appropriate. So that's the third thing. Fourth thing is a case of Coca-Cola, because there's going to be booze in this fantasy world and I need to mix some rum with some Coke.
Okay.
Plus, I figure give it to an alchemist, have him recreate the formula.
Sure.
Hey, look, copyright laws that exist in the magical realm. Screw
That's
them.
right.
Yeah, they can't do anything about that. Think about it. And the last thing would be TP, because you got to have some toilet paper, and that's something I'm definitely going to be fabricating.
Okay.
Now, I could probably figure it out and recreate it, but if you've got it already on hand, again, send it to a wizard. Hey, look at this.
If you have it on hand, you won't have it on your hand.
That's very true. And for the first couple of weeks, as I find my bearings and, figure things out, I'm going to need that.
Sure.
What about you? What would be the 5 things that you would bring to a fantasy world?
I have a very nice waterproof backpack.
Okay, to carry
For
stuff
hiking,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lightweight 4-person tent.
Very practical, yes. See, we'll travel together now.
Oh, we're traveling together.
We are. We're traveling. That way I can stay in your tent and use your backpack.
Okay. I'm also going to bring a lightweight cooking set, right? The kind with the pot and the pan and the lid, like that all screws together. The camping set.
Yeah, camping cookware.
Going to bring that. That's 3.
I have all of those things that literally within reaching distance as well behind that curtain.
But none of those were important.
I'm not carrying any of that stuff, no.
I'm not worried about the survival portion of this trip.
Nah, if I'm going to Fantasy World, I'll survive. I'll be all right.
It's very bold.
Yes, I'm very optimistic about my chances.
I set a crowbar, but I think I'm going to actually, before when we were discussing it, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to grab one of my throwing axes.
Throwing axes? Throwing axes are very useful, yeah.
It's a weapon. It's a hatchet.
I would also say a multi-tool would be useful for something like that, too. And if it had more than 5 things, that would be one of the things I take.
It's true, but a lot of those things aren't actually useful in a fantasy world. Like, how many screws are you going to come across? How much, you know what I'm saying?
You get the pinchers in on the goblin's nose, and you pull him by the nose and tell him, listen, you're not going to stab me in the back in the middle of the night. Okay.
Now, what I also have at the house is a old-fashioned Rambo survival knife with the fishing line and the compass.
Yeah, those are great.
Waterproof matches and all of that stuff.
Get the Merc blade.
Yep.
So I'm just doing a commando remake in my head.
No, you're not wrong, but...
Bennett, I've got the knife with me. Look me in the eye and see what happens when you turn it.
I lied. I know what you're talking about.
I know you said Rambo knife, but I'm thinking commando.
Sure. But, it's got all of the useful things that come with it still in it. I actually have had it for so many years that I didn't even remember I had it until we were going through stuff.
Sure. So is that going to be your 4th or 5th?
That would be my 5th item. Although if I have that, do I need the throwing axe?
Yeah. I mean, you could never have enough weapons.
Well, there is that. No. I'm going to ditch the throwing axe, keep the survival knife, and take a journal.
A journal?
Yes. I have several, as you're super aware.
Matt is an analog person.
Yeah. Because in a fantasy world, high quality paper with a high quality binding fetches a very good price.
That's like cash money.
And since one of us is going to have to write down all their spells,
I just type it in my Kindle. Of course, I don't have power generation, so I'd have to figure something out about that.
I don't think they have the proper keys for arcane sigils and whatnot.
I'll work that out. I'll work all that out. Don't worry about that. Listen, we'll have a great empire together. I'll have a life straw so we won't get diarrhea. It's great.
You're going to be a wizard, and I'm going to be either a druid or a cleric or a multi-class druid cleric.
Mystic Theurge, maybe?
Yeah.
I'll be a cerebromancer.
Sure.
Talking 3.5, folks. Yeah, think about that. Are you interested in the mental arts, or perhaps you're a camper? Write to us, info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric@goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt at goblinscorner.com.
And of course, you can find us on all the things. Lots of stuff now.
In fact, so many things.
Yeah, it's like we don't have jobs or something. It's crazy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about being a master of the mundane. What do we mean? Why are we doing an episode on mundane items, Matt?
Non-magic gear is very underrated, and it gets more underrated the more iterations of a game you have.
Yes. Now, some of that is because in a world of spells and superhuman creatures and monsters and all that other stuff, it's just like, why do I want a regular sword when I can have this sword that literally is on fire and talks to me?
Sure.
And we've done several magic item episodes that are delightful.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked them out, go check them out. But non-magic gear is also very essential. And it can mean the difference between surviving and not surviving.
Yes. And there are very few flaming intelligent swords that make your life more comfortable.
I mean, it's flaming, so it could potentially make a bonfire, but it might get pissed at you for that, too. Using me to start a bonfire? Yes, I am.
This is beneath me.
I don't care. You're flame. Cook my dinner.
It's one of the weapons that you could actually just slide the fish on and then slide it right back off. It's done.
That's a good point. Yeah. Big ol' shish kebab. Like magic items, you can solve all kinds of problems without spells or powers if you have the right non-magical items.
Sure. And it doesn't take limited resources. Most non-magic gear is relatively cheap, and spell slots are better saved for making sure you don't die.
Yes. And this goes back to our love of the skill monkey from previous editions and the current edition as well.
Sure.
Because there's just something about, oh yeah, that's cool. You cast a fireball. But did you load up on a whole barrel of gunpowder and a donkey? Run it into the red dragon's lair? Yeah, Matt did that. Think about that. Oh, I'm sorry. You happen to cast grease? That's cute. I have 1,000 ball bearings.
Yep.
I can cast grease too.
And in fact, if you're cruel and unusual like myself, you combine the two so that they get to make 2 deck saves.
Oh, yes. Flechette rounds now. Think about that. So this is what we're talking about. And while 5E's list is not particularly expansive, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah.
They shrunk it down quite a bit from previous editions. There's still several gems that we feel not just provide unique solutions to problems, but also...
What do we do? What do we talk about? Flavor. That's what we're here for.
So flavor for your game, flavor for your campaign, but most importantly, flavor for your character.
Yeah.
100%. So here's how we're going to do this episode. We're going to dive into the player's handbook. Matt's got one right behind him, in fact.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. And we're going to grab some items we've written down from the equipment list. If you're interested, you can walk through them as well. We're not going to do all of them, but we are going to do several that we think are fun for you to utilize, and we're going to try to give you unique perspectives on these standard issue items.
Yeah. And you're going to find that while I'm definitely a cleric, it is quite often the god of thieves I serve.
Absolutely. Now, we have a few groups that are in no particular order or reason, but we've grouped them because we find them amusing. And here are the groups. Things that you can carry. You can probably suspect what that's about.
Right.
Tools or toolkits.
Sure. Alchemy and scholarly stuff.
Yeah. Camping and exploration, which also includes dungeoneering gear.
Sure.
And finally,
vehicles.
Yep. Now, aside from the obvious uses, we'll go down these lists. We'll give you some unique options for these sets of items for your TTRPG.
So we're going to start off with things you can carry.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about things you can carry. Now, the most ubiquitous thing that you can think of is a backpack.
Yes.
Right? But we can also talk about bags, baskets, haversacks if they have them in your game. We're talking 5e, so they got them.
Sure, just
Sacks.
plain sacks.
Just straight up sack, right? What can we do with these things that you carry stuff in, Matt? Aside from carrying things, because that makes perfect sense.
You're almost always going to carry something in them. It's the unusual things that you can carry for some of them.
Different nature of carrying things.
Right. So, for example, if you took a sack.
Okay. Just regular, straight up sack.
Yep. And you wax the entire thing, beeswax, candle wax, whatever, right? Now you have something that's waterproof.
So you could have a flotation device.
Correct. Because it'll also hold air and water. Not only is it a flotation device, it's a breathing device. You capture the air and you drag it down with you because you're in a medieval setting and you're carrying weapons, which are made of metal, and you're possibly wearing armor, which is made of metal.
Stomping along the ground. The paladin now doesn't drown because he's stomping on the ground. He's got a sack over his head.
He's got a sack.
And it'll last for a little while. Another thing you could do, which many people don't think about, and again, doesn't affect gameplay much, but for storyline, it's great. You got a pillow.
Yeah.
Stuff full of feathers. Stuff full of the monster you just killed. That
or
phoenix.
Just roll it up.
Just roll it up. Yeah, just roll it up. Make a sack.
Shave that owlbear and you've got a fur pillow.
Oh, very nice. Hope it's hyperallergenic.
I'm sure owlbears are.
Yeah. Feather and fur. Think about that.
It's got to be hypoallergenic.
Oh, God. Your allergies would kill you. Glass bottles. What can we do with glass bottles? Now, obviously, you can put things in them to drink. But if you're crafty, devious, or an asshole like us, all three, actually.
Sure.
I see the first thing is obviously a weapon. That's everybody thinks about that.
The first thing is a weapon, but that's not the type.
Caltrops. No?
Molotov. That is
Molotov cocktails.
That's my number one thought when somebody says, I've got this empty bottle. No, sir. You have a future Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, we've got oil flasks down the list as well.
Yep.
That's great. I was thinking grind them up, toss them, and people have to step on broken glass because you know what? That sucks.
It does. Grind it up, throw it in people's food.
Or faces. Oh, food would be great. Yeah, screw poison, man. You start eating glass.
It's not poison.
It's bad times.
Not even magic will detect it.
That's a good point. I love that. What can you do with a flask or a tankard? Again, aside from drinking beer.
And whiskey. Or
whatever.
Booze of choice.
Yeah, booze of choice.
Well, you can use it to hold, obviously, any liquid, but let's see. A tankard, depending on the tankard, is a weapon. Flasks, less so. I mean, I'm not, you could open hand slap somebody with a metal flask in your hand, and you're still going to make them wish that their life was somebody else's.
Now, if I was a DM and I was running a game and people were loading up on gear, I would definitely give bonus points to the rogue who has the whiskey flask over his heart so that when he gets shot in the heart, it pierces the whiskey flask, but not him. Just like in the movies.
Sure.
And usually it's a bullet, but I mean, in this case.
I'd give him 1 arrow for free. Nope, that negates that 1 crit.
Yep.
That's it, just the 1. I don't know. What else could you do with a flask? I mean, obviously, several of these you could toss a message in and seal it up. All of them are designed to hold liquids, so that means they're all waterproof.
I'd say a tankard would be very useful to test water or test some kind of object if you tie it to a line. So a good example of that might be a sounding instrument.
Sure.
You attach it to a fishing line or you attach it to some rope, find out how deep it is.
Yeah.
Like, say, a pool of water, or you might dip it into the water, and because it's made of metal, see if it starts to corrode. Oh, it might be acid in there.
Yep.
Now you know.
Also, if it's a metal tankard, you have a small cooking vessel.
Yes. So now you have a cooking pot.
Yep.
A tiny one, but you can make soup.
It's better than being hungry.
Now, a scroll case is another thing you can carry, and that's also fun. I have used scroll cases for lots of different purposes. The first one, of course, is a very large breathing tube.
Yep. Slapping somebody with.
Yes. You could fill it full of rocks or weights.
Oh, no, I just meant how
just slapping them
how
with the scroll case.
How insulting is it to be slapped with a scroll case?
I really like that.
They didn't even pull a scroll out. They just
slapped them with their scroll case.
That's even more insulting than a fighter hitting you with the sheath of their weapon.
Yeah.
Because you can deal damage with a sheath, but being slapped with a scroll case is basically a velvet glove, right? Like,
I don't know. You get hit by a book, that kind of hurts. So, I mean, a scroll case could be weighty. You could use it as a sap. Knock somebody out with it.
Yeah.
That'd be, especially if it's, I've used it to hold small rodents, particularly the fire rats.
Use it as a coin purse.
You could.
Just do.
Yeah.
Just like a coin roll.
Go into a particular town, maybe they don't care about scrolls. They're not literate. They want your coin purse, but you've got your money in your scroll case. Think about it.
Yep.
Vials and water skins, obviously, they're going to contain liquid, but we use vials in our games all the time.
Yes.
And that is used for what, Matt?
Well, primarily we use it for monster harvesting.
Yes. Sampling bits of monsters every single time. Every character that we play with will sample a vial full, and they've just got like a bandolier full of vials labeling the monsters, which is great.
That's what General Repose is for.
Water skins can be used very similarly.
Sure.
Particularly if you have like an empty water skin and you want to get the blood of whatever creature.
Ichor. Vials are good for collecting venom. They're also good for collecting acid.
Yes, because they're glass.
Yes. Water skins, once again, a very small air supply. Not enough to go scuba diving or anything like that, but if something is at the bottom of a pond and all you need is a few extra breaths to get to it, you're good to go.
Again, could be a flotation device as well. Depends
Sure.
on how big the water skin. If you got a couple of them, or maybe you just
Floaties.
Yeah, little floaties, or have something to like bob for your fishing gear.
Sure.
Lots of different purposes. Let's talk a little bit about tools now.
All right.
And I think before we get into the actual tools that are listed in the PH, let's talk a bit about tool kits.
Okay. Now, we're not going to get into individual toolkits because they're just collections of individual tools.
Right. And in fact, the only thing that I noticed out of the player's handbook that's any different is the bag of sand from the scholar's toolkit.
Now, just as a tip, right? It's always best to buy the kits because they're cheaper than you can buy each of those things individually.
And many of them contain, as you mentioned, like container devices.
Yeah, they're free backpacks.
Yeah. All right. So the first tool that we have up is, and this is just a general category, adamantine objects.
Yes.
Now, you might say, well, adamantine, but that's not technically mundane, but it's not magic.
No, it is. It is a non-magical item. It, for all intents and purposes, it's this world's titanium.
Yes. And you could also go into like dark wood if you're elf or whatever other unique materials that there are, but
Sure.
adamantine is a special favorite of mine because I want an adamantine crowbar
Mm-hmm.
because that can open anything.
And I want an adamantine wire saw.
Because that also can
Opens
open
anything.
anything. And some of the characters that we've had over the years, and many of our friends that have had characters over the years, have had either or both the wire saw and the crowbar made of adamantine,
Yes, it is worth the investment.
or a mining pick made of adamantine.
Sure.
Because if you really need to get into something and you don't have magic to do it, or maybe you've got a little time on your hands, or you're in a magic dead zone,
Yeah.
adamantine objects are very useful.
True facts. Gotta love it. Let's talk about one of our favorites, a often guest on this show, the crowbar.
Okay. Tell me a bit about what we can do with the crowbar aside from opening things.
All right. Well, first off, that's disrespectful. First off, you can open things with it, and that's amazing. But secondly, it is obviously a fantastic improvised weapon.
Yes.
It also acts as a wedge to keep things closed once you have opened them, or keep things open.
So you're in a dungeon, you've locked the door, the orcs are trying to get in, you stick the crowbar in, now you've got advantage
Yep.
because they can't open that door.
Or if you can plainly see that the door that you opened is going to drop down, wedge a crowbar in it, call it a day.
Yeah. Same thing you could do with other objects as well, but crowbars are just more fun.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, you could crack a skull open with it as well.
It opens things.
So another thing I was thinking about use for crowbar, depending on how long it is, if you get one of the really long crowbars, you can also use it to kind of like hold yourself up. So maybe if you're shimmying across something, like use it to as a balance bar or beam or something like that.
Use it as a zip line.
A zip line. Oh, yeah, because it's got a hook on it.
Yep.
Get a little rope.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Do it with style.
What can we do with hammers? Hammers and picks that maybe you don't expect.
I don't know. See, the thing for me about hammers is I feel like most of the alternative uses for hammers are pretty common uses regardless, right? Like, yes, this hammer is technically designed to drive this nail into this wood, but everyone knows
You can drive a nail
that you
into
can
somebody's
crack
skull.
a head with it, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have any interesting like side light options for a hammer?
Not for a hammer, but I have one for a pick.
Okay.
Make improvised anchor for a boat.
Very fair. Yeah, for a small boat, but still, yeah.
Got a canoe, you're in the Underdark,
Yeah.
tie a rope to it, got an anchor.
Nice call. I like that.
You could potentially do the same thing for a hammer, like a set of weights or something like that. I'll tell you something that you could do with a little bit of rope and a hammer. You could make an improvised trap. Someone opens the door, it swings the hammer right into their face.
Yeah.
And you could do that with, honestly, anything. Sledgehammers would be another good example of that as well. And, so think about stuff like that. Yes, it's a weapon, but it's also very heavy. What can you do with heavy objects? It could just literally just hold some paper down too.
It's true. Tap into your inner Kevin McAllister.
Yes. Now, iron spikes and pitons.
Okay.
Iron spikes are easy.
Sure. Pitons for me are actually easier than iron spikes.
Okay. What do you got for pitons then?
So pitons in a rope are a ladder,
Yes.
obviously, because it's for climbing, a cargo net,
Oh, nice.
an easy way to keep a prisoner from going anywhere, because you literally just knock them out, lay them down, piton all the way around them, and cocoon them with rope or chain.
Or piton their hands. I mean, if you...
It's true.
The same thing goes with iron spikes as well. Iron spikes make a really good trap.
Yeah.
Attach them to a shield. You could throw a pit down, throw some iron spikes down in the pit, and that would make a nice deadly trap as well. You could use them, again, for weights, fishing lures, chuck them for distractions.
Spike a door.
You could spike a door, yeah.
To me, that's one of the great uses of it. The amount of, I would say, if a door is spiked, whatever the DC was doesn't change, but you're rolling at disadvantage.
I love that.
That's
Now, what could you do with a 10-foot chain, Matt? This is what they list. It lists a 10-foot chain.
It's true. What couldn't I do with a 10-foot chain? It's a climbing device, clearly.
Yes.
Anchoring device. It acts as an anchor.
It does. It depends on how big the chain is, but yeah, it would seem like regular style chain.
Yeah.
Armor.
Yeah.
Wrap it around yourself, for example.
I have played a character with chains as armor before. Let's see.
You could sharpen the joints, and you could use it as a saw.
Yeah. You could also use it as a weapon in that case.
Absolutely.
Make a flail out of it. You can literally attach it to the roof, and then each one of those links can be used to hang something.
Yeah.
So if you're a rogue and you have a workshop, you literally have everything on hooks. You just lay it all out, roll it up, and you're off to work. Same goes true for wizards. You can use it to freaking hang herbs if you're an herbalist. It's just a great storage methodology also.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to talk a little bit more about mundane items that you can use for your D&D game, but we'll be right back.
After these messages.
You with the face. Do you like what we have to say?
Help our channel rise from the depths like the mighty Godzilla.
Please like and subscribe and ring the bell and do all of the necessary YouTube.
What he said.
If there are any topics you would like us to cover, goods or services you would like us to review, or if you would like to sponsor an episode, we would love for you to contact us at info@goblinscorner.com. See you there. And we're back.
Welcome back.
So we're talking about mastery of the mundane, and we've been going through a couple of fun items that come right out of the player's handbook. And we were talking a little bit about tools and things that you can do, some unique ways to use tools.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get to a couple other fun things. Let's talk a little bit about musical instruments, Matt.
Okay.
And when you think about a musical instrument, obviously playing the musical instrument is the normal idea,
Right.
but
That's its use.
But we have other uses for that.
Everything that has a string has built-in garrotes. That's just
Take that guitar string off, just strangle somebody with it.
absolutely.
And you mentioned one during the break that I really love, and that is if you're a thief, you need to pretend to be a bard so that you can smuggle with your guitar
Absolutely.
or whatever instrument you happen to have. Have a drum? Perfect.
Yep. False bottom or slot in the side, whatever.
Playing a flute, you got poison in there. A flute which is converted to a blowgun would be very awesome.
Absolutely.
Think about that.
You literally just cover all the holes.
Yeah. And just hit somebody with a dart.
Yep. Darts don't do a lot of damage. Poison, on the other hand.
Poison has lots of damage. We'll get to poison in just a minute. Speaking of which, in fact, let's talk a little bit about one of my favorite mundane sets of items, alchemical devices.
Okay.
Now, the first one on our list is acid.
Yes.
Acid eats through stuff. Yes, it does damage, which is usually what people buy acid for, like an acid flask to toss on somebody. And that's great.
Yeah.
But there's much more fun applications with acid. Matt,
Sure.
the first one that comes to mind with you is what?
A lockpick.
Yes. It's the best lock. That was what I was going to say as well. You want a lockpick? Throw some acid into the lock. You don't need to worry about the lock,
It's true.
depending upon the acid and the strength.
You can use it to make art.
Oh, etchings.
Yes.
Yes, that's a great idea. Scratch up a thing of metal, drop a little acid on there.
Graffiti on the walls of the castle that can't be washed off. If I was a terrible person.
That would be kind of funny, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. You want to make a door or a hole? There you go. You got a vial of acid.
And it may take some time or just a lot of acid, but it's quiet.
Yes.
And that's also super bonus.
Another thing you could also use the acid for is to potentially kill whatever's in a large body of water. Make it slightly acidic. After it's diluted a certain amount, you could potentially even drink it.
Something you could also do with it is, depending on what type of campaign you're playing, if you're playing an espionage or subterfuge style campaign, you could take it and mess with all of the weapons and armor in an armory. Right? Just little drops on buckles, little drops on the places where the blades meet the hilts, stuff like that.
So that they just snap?
Yes, sabotage.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, sabotage everybody's weapons or sabotage the wagon wheel, the axle. No one's going to look at the axle under the carriage.
Yep.
That's a great idea. I love that. Yeah, so a couple applications for some acid, folks. Now, in terms of alchemist fire and alchemist lightning, alchemist fire, I'm thinking cooking with it, like sterno.
Yeah, you absolutely could. You literally, instead of busting it open, you just pop the cork and set a fry pan on top of it, do a little saute. It'll be great.
Oh, man. Do you imagine an artificer that has like some alchemist fire, but he's also a chef?
Yeah.
That would be a big old chef hat, mechanical arm.
Yeah, the alchemist, like literally the alchemist artificer.
Yes.
They just make their own.
Now, what could you do with alchemist lightning?
I would need a creative DM to work with me on that.
You could purify water once again.
You could.
Bubbling lightning ozone through it.
Yeah. You could tack weld with it.
You could, in fact, tack weld, yes, if they would allow that.
Well, what I was thinking was if you took the actual vial and put a glass straw that narrows down to a tip and literally just drew with the alchemist lightning. Now, it may take you a couple of vials to get it done, but I don't see why you couldn't tack weld with it.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Now, you mentioned an abacus as well.
Yes.
And when you listed this, I was like, this is one of these objects. I was like, nah, I don't think you could do anything with it. But Matt, you really have gone above and beyond with the abacus. Tell me what you can do with an abacus.
If it's a standard beaded abacus, then you could literally make it into a ball bearing trap just by snapping it. That's a quick and easy one. Another one is you could use it to make a noisemaker trap. You just tack it down to either side of a door frame. When somebody forces the door open, abacuses are very spindly wood. If they're using enough force to open the door, they're using enough force to break an abacus.
That'll make a lot of noise.
Especially when all of those beads hit the ground.
Yes.
So, yeah, there are things you can do with an abacus. You could also just crack it over somebody's head. It's a heck of a distraction. It's not going to do much in the way of damage, but
it'd be ridiculous and fun to do so.
Once again, insulting. It is insulting to get smacked with an abacus.
Holy water and antitoxins. Let's talk about those.
Okay, so I've got to come back to holy water because I need to loop back around real quick.
Okay.
One of the things we forgot to mention with the water flask is you use the water flask, you fill it up with holy water, and now you have a holy water gun because you put it under your arm like you're playing the bagpipes, right? And then you put the nozzle and you just wham!
Anti-vampire super soaker.
Yes, indeed.
That's wonderful. I love that. And I was going to say, one of the biggest uses of holy water is to kill vampires.
Sure.
Or whatever. Or
undead,
or even it burns a lot of
demons.
Yeah, demons, fiends of all sorts. Antitoxins, they're pretty much used as they're used.
Yes, no.
You've got something for that?
Yeah. So you actually use it as an assassination device.
I'm listening.
So what you do is you sneak antitoxin into everybody's food except for the person you want to kill, and you make a poisonous meal.
And everybody you have the official meal taster.
Everybody tastes the food and everything's fine.
Except for the one person that you want to kill.
Yes.
That's very devious. I like that. I would never have thought of that.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Poison meal.
Well done. Let's talk about holy symbols.
Now, this is really going to depend on your holy symbol. If you're a cleric of mask, you use it to hide your face because it's literally a mask.
Yes. If you're a cleric of Palor, probably not going to work as well.
No, but I feel like if you're a cleric of Palor and your holy symbol...
Or a Monitor if it's Forgotten Realms.
And your holy symbol is not a shuriken, like, what are you really doing with your life? It's already a sunburst. If it's not bladed, why are you even bothering?
Should be used
what are
as
you
a
doing?
weapon.
You're an adventurer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking, one of the things you could use holy symbols for, aside from being a cleric of stuff, is to impersonate a cleric.
Sure.
If you're a thief or a rogue and you want to infiltrate, I would have just a bag full of holy symbols.
What is it, Benny from the Mummy?
Yes, he just breaks out for different ones.
Yeah.
So, because that way you're always prepared for whatever religion you have. Now, you need to have a good religion score for that, or at least a good bluff.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that you would have in your disguise kit, a whole mess of holy symbols.
And you don't even have to have a great religion score. All you have to do is study one religion, right? Because if you make an entire fake identity out of it, Father Bobbert of Palor, you bring one set of clothes for Father Bobbert and you throw them on, and that's who you are for the duration of the need.
Let's talk a little bit about an hourglass.
It's filled with sand. It is a delicate thing that is filled with sand. It is a weapon in the making.
That we got to go back. I have something for alchemist lightning now.
Yeah.
You can make glass with it. Yes. Yeah. Now we're talking. See?
Yep.
You'd have to have a good GM that lets you do that, but still.
And a fair amount of alchemist lightning.
Yeah, but
I'd allow it.
You'd let me make glass
Sure.
out of sand? Good. There you go. Okay, so we've got an hourglass full of sand. And we've got a glass vial.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of wood usually, or brass or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Whatever the frame is. Now, for me, an hourglass is something that is not that unusual, right? It is a nondescript item. So what if your hourglass isn't filled with sand? What if it's filled with poison? And smuggling. Simple smuggling.
That's a great idea, just to hold stuff in there.
Yeah.
You could use pens for the same thing, like an ink pen or something like that. Any normal object could have poison in it. Like, you used to have poison rings in medieval age.
Sure. You could, even the spindles on the side of the hourglass could be hollow.
You know what I would put in my hourglass? Dust of dryness.
Sure.
Totally not mundane, but
Yeah.
But what a great way to store it. Because if something really you really want to kill that water elemental, toss that at him.
The other side of that is you could take the pellet from a used dust of dryness.
Oh, good idea, yeah.
Keep a couple of those stored in there. Now you've got 20 cubic foot of water that you can just slam down anywhere you want. Hey, the castle's on fire. Poof, no, it's not. Shut up.
It's case of emergency break.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just like they have those now, the fire extinguishers that you just throw.
Yeah.
Sure. Same thing.
Same thing. There you go. Magnifying glasses are pretty useful. I mean, obviously you can use them to see things better, but the tried and true method that every kid has ever...
Elementary school method of starting a fire.
Starting a fire, right? Perfume. Now that's something that I find interesting, and I'll tell you what I would use the perfume for. To throw other people off my scent.
Sure. 100%.
You get a vial of perfume. You don't wear it. You
No.
can, of course, but you use it in a dungeon for the... You have your rogue go maybe 100 paces in a different direction to do a false lead. Drop a little perfume, just in case you're being tracked. Or you put it on an animal and have them run through the forest if you're being tracked. Now you've got a false lead. You guys go in a different direction.
Or you just use it to completely wipe a scent trail. You get into the middle of a clearing, and then you douse the whole clearing in cinnamon oil. Whatever is using keen scent
Is now not
has
using keen.
ceased using keen scent.
It's now, it's chemically blind.
Yep.
Tossing it as a weapon at a creature that senses with their smell
Yeah.
is also very handy. Poison, obviously, many uses for poison. Killing people is the biggest thing. However, there are other uses for poison.
Sleeping safely. You use it to get rid of bugs. You literally surround the campsite in poison, or you burn poisonous incense outside. I mean, that's literally what we do. It's just not poisonous to humans.
So if you're in a dungeon, you just pour a little bit all the way around the area, and now monstrous vermin just start dropping dead. That stupid rust monster that's going to sneak up on you and eat all your weapons is dead.
And that is another reason why you should always keep a poisoned weapon on you, is for rust monsters.
Oh, to kill the rust monster. Very good.
Just
I didn't think about that.
One well-poisoned dagger that you never use.
You just toss it at the rust monster, it
Mhm.
eats it, and dies. Think about that, folks. You're welcome. There you go. DMs across the world are going, F- you guys. Sealing wax, signet rings. Sealing wax is easy. You can use sealing wax to seal things.
Primarily envelopes.
Right, but you could, if you have enough of it.
Wax is just useful in and of itself. You make something watertight, not just like closing up a vial or something like that, which obviously it's useful for, but also, like you were saying, with enough wax, you can make a sack or something larger, watertight.
And finally, on our list of alchemy and other things is soap.
Yes.
My first thought, because I'm a terrible person, is a soap in a sock. You just beat people with it
Oh,
like a blackjack.
I went back to my water gun.
Okay.
Soapy water. You get into a fight. You ever gotten soap in your eyes?
Oh, that's awful.
You ever gotten traditional old school soap in
The
your
lye
eyes?
soap, yeah. Well, not only that, it's a grease spill. They're
That's
coming
true.
down the corridor. You just soap up the whole place. Yeah,
Yep.
everyone's just writhing around.
Pour out the soapy water, then cast grease, then throw down the caltrops, then throw down the ball bearings.
Oh, God, that's awful. So they're slipping. They're being stabbed. They're still clean, but they're also greasy.
You can make copies of keys with soap. If you grab the key, you press it into a bar of soft soap, you pull the key out, you now have an imprint of the key.
You could do that with wax as well.
That's true.
Make copies of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Including signets.
Yes. All right, we've come to camping stuff, which includes exploration and dungeoneering as well. Now, a two-person tent, obviously you would sleep in it, but you can also use a two-person tent for a lot of other things. I'll do a perfect example. You could make it as a flotation device.
Yep.
You could make it as a canoe if you add a couple of tree limbs.
Bedrolls are pretty obvious. You sleep in them. Now, they could also be a pillow, obviously, but they're a sack. They're storage.
Yes. And in fact, that's why they call them bedrolls, because a lot of times you would roll stuff up in the bedroll. A bag of sand. Bag of sand's a handy weapon. Reach in there, toss it into somebody's eyes.
It's good for blinding people. It's good as a sap.
Yes.
It's a blackjack.
It's great for detecting whether or not something's coming at you, like they're invisible.
Yeah, just look for the footprints.
Yep. You can also use it to, as Indiana Jones showed, to swap out the artifact before of course, it didn't work too well for him.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Let's talk about ball bearings and caltrops, our two favorite things. Ball bearings are very easy. The first thing I will say about a ball bearing is take a ball bearing, roll it down the hallway. If something snaps at it, guess what? It's trapped.
True. You can use ball bearings to detect grade. You can use ball bearings to detect inconsistencies in the floor. Obviously, you can use them to trip people.
Yes. And as you mentioned before, you can use them as well as caltrops as flechette rounds if you blow something up next to them.
I also like caltrops as a method to turn an improvised weapon into a proper weapon with a little bit of time. A tree branch with some affixed caltrops is a club.
Yeah.
It is a morning star. That is a for real weapon at that point. No one will convince me otherwise.
That's pretty nasty stuff at that point. Yeah. Totally mess somebody up with that. Also, caltrops are really great in places that people don't expect. Everyone thinks to step on them and stuff like that. But you never think of putting caltrops in somebody's bed.
I was thinking pillow.
Oh, pillow. Pillow is even better. I love that idea. Yeah. Something they might land on, like a saddle. Bells and block and tackle. Now, those two items I'm putting hand in hand because that makes an improvised alarm.
Yeah.
String it up just right. Put the bells on it. Someone comes at you in the middle of the night, trips the bell. Ding, 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 ding. Everybody wakes up. That's the alarm spell.
Think about half of the stores that you walk into. They've got a little bell hanging. The second the door hits it, it makes a noise, right?
Yeah.
That is a sound trap.
Yes.
Bells also could be an improvised weapon. So can block and tackle, by the way. I don't know if people can properly picture what block and tackle looks like, but it is a flail. It is a heavy wooden, I lost the word for it. Yeah. Well,
heavy wooden
it is a heavy wooden block. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that.
That's what I'm here for.
Like a flywheel, basically. If you grab the rope and it's at the end, that 10 pounds on the end of a rope is a flail.
Yes. Grappling hooks would be useful for that as well, by the way. Because a grappling hook, which comes in the PH, you can also use as a flail.
Yes.
Chalk. Now, chalk and candles. Candles are easy because you can do all kinds of stuff. All the sealing that we mentioned before with the signet wax, do the same thing with candles. Of course, you could light stuff with a candle. You can also set stuff on fire with a candle. You can also
use it as a timer.
Yes, use it as a timekeeper is the best thing to use a candle for, I would say, especially if you're in a dungeon. Now, chalk is one of those things where we always have a piece of chalk.
Yes.
Because you get lost, draw on the dungeon walls. You can also grind chalk up for tummy aches.
You can also grind chalk up for blinding powder.
You can, in fact, do that as well. All right, here's one. 10-foot ladder or a 10-foot pole. What can you do with that?
The ladder, if you think about it realistically, is 2 10-foot poles with extra pieces of wood. So automatically, it's a better investment.
Okay. I'm listening.
A 10-foot pole you can use as a balance pole, obviously. You can use it to test for traps at a 10-foot distance, which, while not good for magical traps most of the time, is still generally sufficient for physical traps.
Go prodding stuff until it cuts it open. You now have a 5-foot pole. That's okay.
You have a 5-foot pole, but both arms and both legs.
Yeah, but the rogue is alive.
You can use it to... Look, not all players are strong enough to make a 10-foot jump.
Oh, so you use it to kind of pole vault over?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I was thinking about a 10-foot ladder would be to bar a door or bar a series of doors.
Sure.
Which might be kind of useful. Of course, why you would be carrying a 10-foot ladder around might be kind of strange. You could also use, if you have canvas or sacks of cloth or whatever, you can make yourself a kind of a very flimsy canoe or something like that out of it.
Depending on how flexible the pole is, certainly.
Yeah. Now, one of the last things that we come to is rope.
The best thing. The thing that everyone should have under all circumstances.
Doesn't matter whether it's hemp or silk rope, rope is useful regardless because you can lash things to it, you can tie stuff down, you can build yourself a net.
You can tie things up.
Yeah. You can scale objects, you can use it as a lever, carry stuff, you can make it into an improvised weapon with a big rock.
There are very few things that you can't accomplish with rope and another object.
Yes.
It is useful in and of itself, but when you add any other single object to it, you increase its potential exponentially with each object you have.
It's like using fishing line, like block and tackle and stuff like that,
Yeah.
to make improvised traps. And we'll go into traps on some other episode because that could literally take an entire episode to go into.
Possibly too, yeah.
I think it might be interesting to come up with some creative traps for your game. That'd be kind of neat too.
I think we should do some traps for players and for DMs.
I love that. Yeah. Now, one final note is vehicles. There's a lot of things you can do with vehicles that you may not think about. Boats and canoes, all sorts of like chariots or wagons and stuff. Obviously, for carrying things, what's something that you think of in terms of a vehicle that maybe has a different type of use?
A log canoe, one of the thicker bottomed canoes, is perfect for using as shelter during an arrow storm.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Another use of a canoe you could have is you could take it, flip it upside down, weight it down, maybe with the miner picks we talked about earlier. Have it sink to the bottom. Now you have a submersible.
You could take that submersible, attach it to the bottom of a regular ship, and now you have a giant smuggling container.
Oh, that would be awesome to smuggle people or objects.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about that. Just have it underwater. You probably need something eventually to get air coming back up, but you could tie everything down with some rope. It'd be underneath the bottom of the boat. So, I mean, aside from monsters grabbing it,
yeah,
you'd be good.
The thing is if you're not smuggling people, if you're just smuggling stuff doesn't breathe.
That's a good point. Yeah. So there you have it. Several unique viewpoints on some of the common objects directly out of the PH.
Common everyday things don't get enough love. And to me, part of the reason I enjoy starting at lower levels is because you really get to delve into the creative necessity of having less resources.
Absolutely. And that's something that we definitely would stress. Use some of these objects. Think about them in a different light.
Yeah.
I mean, we only scratched the surface. I'm sure that we missed a whole ton of different uses for a common item, which is totally fine. If you're interested, throw them into the comments.
I mean, we do try to keep these around an hour, so we could have gone literally item by item, but nobody is going to be that interested for that long.
Yeah. Speaking of which, any questions or comments, write to us. info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric, at goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt, at goblinscorner.com.
We're on all the things. Matt, what are all the things we're on?
We're on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok.
As Goblins Corner.
And Instagram.
As the Goblins Corner. Do you like our show? Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite player, YouTube and Twitch.
Also, if you could do us a favor and click the 5 stars or give us a review on iTunes or Podchaser. For YouTube, hit like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things, comment. We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah.
It boosts our show, and it feeds the hungry algorithm.
Which is rapidly sneaking up on you with a crowbar. And probably some rope.
Probably.
Yeah. That's all the time we have for tonight. Once again, my name's Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next time.
Good night, folks.
The Goblins Corner is written and produced by Eric Holden and Matt Staples. show song by the mighty D20. Don't we love that guy?
Sure.
This is a Subterranean production.